Good afternoon. The meeting is being live streamed.
Welcome.
Go ahead.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everyone to February 8th, 2022 ETAC meeting. My name is Brian Germain and I am the chair of the Environmental and Transportation Advisory Committee. We have 7 items on the agenda, so we must move efficiently in order to meet our goal to ending the meeting by 5:30 p.m. Recording secretary, please start the meeting.
It's ready to start. The meeting is ready to start.
Here.
Brian Germain. Brian Germain.
Yes. Hi. I would like to call this ETAC meeting of February 8th, 2022 to order at 6:04 p.m.
Is 404.
Recording secretary, please call roll.
Right. Carl Denninger.
Here.
Brian Germain.
Here.
Janelle McLaughlin requested an excused absence earlier. Tanya Navarro. Jordan Romero. Here. Gary Wood.
Here.
Nathaniel Greensize.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Would Commissioner Gary Wood please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recording secretary, please describe the way the public can access this virtual meeting.
The public was able to join the speaker queue at 3:30. Once a participant has entered the meeting, they were able to be placed in a holding queue. Participants will be prompted to speak in the order received. After I confirm your Zoom ID and unmute you, the participant must press the microphone icon to speak. Participants are encouraged but not required to identify themselves by name. Each participant will be provided 3 minutes to speak unless additional time is granted by the chairperson. Immediately after this comment, we will begin admitting speakers that need to speak. I can see no one in the audience that is going to be speaking from the public. Requests to speak shall not be accepted after the public comment session begins without permission of the presiding chair. Thank you. Go ahead.
So at this time, we have no public comments. I believe we're moving into the consent calendar.
That is correct.
Moving on to the consent calendar, items 1, 2, and 3. Recording secretary, do we have any commissioner's absence to be reflected as an excused absence?
Commissioner McLaughlin requested an excused absence, and that is it.
Thank you. And is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar items 1, 2, and 3?
I make a motion that we accept items 1, 2, and 3.
Commissioner Greenside will second.
Commissioner Benninger has made a motion to accept consent calendar items 1, 2, and 3 is presented. We'll go ahead and vote. Commissioner Wood. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Wood.
Aye.
Commissioner Benninger.
Aye.
Commissioner Price.
Aye.
Commissioner Romero.
Aye.
Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes.
At this time, it looks as we're ending our consent calendar and moving into our business calendar items. Moving on to the business calendar, would staff introduce item 4, work study session, scope of work for citywide parking study, request for proposal.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Great to see all of you. I would like to introduce Frank Urbana, our senior engineer, to give a presentation on a work study session item, scope of work for the citywide parking study, request for proposal. We have made this presentation to a couple of locations already. One of them being the City Council, the second one is Town Link, and we continue to do this presentation to rest of the neighborhood associations that requested. With that, Frank.
Chair, can you see
Yes.
the presentation?
No, I see the conference room at this moment.
Yes.
It doesn't. Use a few minutes. And it will come back to it. And then at the bottom of the sentence, share screen. That PDF, yeah, I'm not doing it. Right. Okay. Let's just share that.
Thank you. Chair, can you see the presentation?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Vice Chair and Chairman. Thank you for having this work study session for the urban parking study that we're conducting. And this is at the level of doing the scope of work at this point. Well, when you start off, everybody actually knows what urban parking is, and you guys had some interaction with it, not wanting it for trying to make it work better with other things that we've done along the way. The program is roughly about 30 plus years old. We have about 9,000 permits associated with the program. The scope of work has been developed, and we're looking for the citywide input from not just committee members like yourself here, but also council, accommodate everyone that Bill said you've already visited and will continue to visit. Later on, we'll share a timeline of how fast we want to get to share this program with everybody and study. Excuse me. Now, the items you see up in the scope of work are just a fraction of the ones we have associated already. So you can see this is more to start maybe some conversations, and that's why we're here for this. So you can see what items we're considering, multitude of other items we've been considered, and since about a week and a half ago, we've already done some revisions to comments that we received from about 5 neighborhood association meetings and 2 community meetings. So, and that's what I'm here for today. Not just to open it up to you hearing the comments, but also taking it back to your neighborhoods, whomever, if you have a traffic committee in your neighborhood or any other association that wants to discuss these items, we can do so. And one way to do that, and I'll share it here with the body here, is we have this little comment card that some of you are aware of. If not, we'll get some more copies out to you. That you can make comments in different ways. In person, writing stuff, dropping it off to us, or either on the email that's associated with it, or the phone number. Or if you can't get any of this, if you know our emails, then that's another way to get a hold of us. Whichever way it is you want to get hold of us, it'll reach the folders that we have, the files we have that are receiving all these comments, and we're putting all that together. Our hope is to get to all 63, 64 neighborhoods by the end of March. So, and that's when we start, and we'll show that timeline later for it. So that's our tentative timeline right now. February, March is our outreach. This is to see if our scope of work is tighten it up as much as we can with everyone's input. We should have everyone's input in it as well. Everything's on the table for the scope of work. Everything that you like or dislike about permanent parking is on the table. So if you might have a question about, I want 5 or 6 permits, you can put that on the table. All this will be analyzed. Every facet of the program will be analyzed and will be open. So this is what we're doing the outreach real quick. The outreach doesn't end there. Once we get the study beginning in July, there'll be still outreaches at all the neighborhoods. Everyone throughout the city will have a chance to re-comment on how we're going on with that process. We're hoping to study in somewhere in 2023. And then the implementation, because it's on an odd year, if you're familiar with the program, our renewal years are on odd years, 21 to 23 to 25. So we might have a implementation, a soft implementation in 2024. It just depends how big the revisions are, how big the program has changed. That'll depend on that. So it'll be a perfect time. So by 2025, there'll be full blown in place ready to go. So with that, I'd love to open it to comments, discussions, anything you may want to throw out to us and put it on paper and everything right now. The only thing I ask for the recording, if you put your name for the comment, that way I would give credit to the one person.
Ready for a play. All right, this is the Commissioner Carl Benjamin. First of all, this is great. I'm so glad we're taking a look at this. It's been talked about, kicked around. I'm glad that we are moving forward on it. A couple questions that I do have, and it's kind of funny because as I've talked to various friends, one that lives in Washington Square, no one complains about cost. So what is the permit cost of business right now in Washington Square?
The permit costs the same every month. The one permit's around $74.95. It goes up every July due to cost of living increases. So and that whatever council sets that to be 2%, 1%, it'll go about that month. And it keeps that every year that goes up.
Cost based on cost to run the program or the city profit?
Right now, we're subsidizing the program. That's one of the things we'll look at is to see if we can have a full cost recovery for the program. So right now, the city is subsidizing. I think when we last review, a good amount of time ago, plus 5 years, at least $1 million.
It's funny, I heard a lot of people talk about enforcement. I had enforcement. My buddy in Washington Square said, no, you're very quick to enforce it. Claiming that his wife was out in the car and parked from the house and got that thing. Of course, my question to him was, why was your car tagged? His head. I didn't get an answer back there. So it was.
From an enforcement standpoint, that's on the table as well. From anywhere from the current way we do enforcement to using technology on the highway to be able to scan cars. Say if I'm driving down the street, scanning all the license plates and everything, and then issuing tickets as necessary. Part of that is also people complaining about the actual permits, being on the bumper on the windshield. This one's tied to that driver's license, to the license plate, and it's issued automatically. We used to do that with the red light cameras. Then we got a ticket for running the red light, so we got it there. We're going to look to do something like that, if possible, here as well, just so that the cost, how much would the permit be to have all of this equipment and everything. So there's going to be a hybrid system along the way with this. We're just going to the whole gamut of what's available out there, we're going to look at. And then put it all on the table. That way everybody's aware of it, they know your friend will know if they see I'll call it a big green van coming down, that's gonna get excited. So, but yeah, as far as the enforcement, and more to your point, as far as some places will enforce more than others, I can't speak for PD on that, it's up to, we might have to find out, was there 30 calls that week for enforcement? And it just so happens to be that they're gonna have to enforce. So,
We also, I believe discussion with also a company hired to enforce the parking permits.
yes,
We know who that is.
it's LAZ, I think, parking enforcement. Yeah.
Also, when I looked over this at home, a year to study, to me, why that can't be 6 months. The reason why we need a year to study.
It depends on how, like, the input we get back. We have certain things that we have on the scope of work that can be relatively implemented right away. There's other ones that may not be able to. If it's studied a little further, we may look at other, case studies in other cities and stuff like that. For example, Anaheim, they use they don't use units in bedrooms. So for 1 to 2 bedrooms, they would put one parking permit. So on the surface, it looks really good, but we have a little bit of this area, not necessarily footage on our streets. That may not work. So that may require us going into, let's say, what is now Pacific, I think Pacific Park neighborhood, it's East Side Urban Parking District. That's a very mixed use, high dense area that may require us to be every 3 to 4 months for us, let's say, the northeast part of the city. It take us 2 weeks to get there. So that's why we're giving us a little space to be able to give everybody due diligence and prepare right to answer them. Because we have 27 districts in the city of LA, covered 63 neighborhoods. So we want to make sure we reach out to everybody, and even possibly then to get out to the doing the district per their own district's needs and wants versus applying it like we do now across the board to all districts. So that's why we're looking at the year long study.
We're also going to look at all the high-rise apartments we put in. That unfortunately, over the years, I heard things like a half a parking space per apartment that was that contribute to this.
Yes, that's on the table as well. How the government does their studies and everything. One thing that can come out of it, which is when we kicked around, is okay, the city center has been long enough, here around enough for all these different type of products. We can actually do the studies within our own city. We don't have to go to Pasadena, Beverly Hills, and say, look, what's happening over here. Let's bring it here. No, study within the city because there's not a new product coming in that's different than we've already had here. So let's study it with what we've done here, and let's see what hasn't worked here. And that could lead to changes within the development requirements and stuff like that. So, but everything's on the table. It could be something simple as that, or it could be a totally different new way of looking at it that is proposed, and it may work for us for the parking. And obviously the conversations with council, the planning department, the code enforcement, all that, all is going to be involved.
Very good. I'm very supportive of this program. It's long overdue. Fortunately, maybe people are over here, so I just done. Thank you.
Commissioner Rivera.
Yes.
There's a parking war. Wait, there's a parking war. I just wanted to say that. And I think that looks different in different neighborhoods. Like, I like how you said that maybe per district, the parking permits will be a little bit different.
Correct.
Especially because when somebody has a house, they already have a parking space. A lot of apartment complexes don't have parking spaces, and a lot of apartment complexes have multiple families in one household. So if there's only one permit per household, that's difficult for some families, especially if they're low income, working class, etc. So I'm not sure how that will look, but I think it's good to consider that. I'm also thinking about the price of the permits. Maybe $74 isn't a lot for somebody, but it could be a lot for somebody else. I'm not sure if you said some of the permit fees are waived, but that's also something good to consider, possibly in those neighborhoods that we know are very low income. Maybe offering incentives of some sort to waive those parking permits. And I'm curious if you've considered some roads that have one-sided parking. I know specifically on my street, there's one-sided parking and the other lane is car speeding through. So there is a possibility of adding on-street parking. So I'm not sure if you looked at some streets in Santa Ana that have that. And I'm also wondering, what are the benefits of having permits in the city for parking? There's a big need for parking, so I'm curious if you can touch on the purpose of permit parking.
So the initial intent for permit parking was, as the state allowed, to prevent parking intrusion into your neighborhood. Now, it was a broad definition back about 30 plus years ago that was applied. The way we used the program was everything below 4 units, anything like a fourplex, triplex, duplex, a single family was included in the program. 5 units and above were excluded from the program at that time. And it stayed obviously for 30 years that way. The reason for that was just that the amount of cars that were being brought in, a lot of times you have to do everything with your neighborhood or the neighbors there. So there was, some, we'll say business intrusion and everything in some of the neighborhoods. Each neighborhood is unique to what their surroundings are. So we looked at it different ways. Each neighborhood, every time we applied the current parking program. Moving forward, everything you mentioned is on the table. What we open, what we don't open up, how we open it. Anywhere to restripe the street, to add parking on the other side, it's safe to do so. And I caution that because before I said that there might be some ways to do things and it looks right on the surface, but it could cost us some money. So let's say we reduce the amount of lanes on the street, right? Basically changing the classification of the streets. So now we use grant funding that we normally go after to repave the street, maybe 10, 15 years down the line. Now we might not be able to get all the money we normally would do for a street like that. The grant might not apply because the classification of the street has this to do with capacity mostly. So, but now in the current program, we have opened up areas that it's eligible for, and there's the key for us right now. And that's what's going to be on the table with the current study, is that how can you put permit parking on non-eligible properties? What I mean by non-eligible is everything outside of the ones I mentioned before. 5 units is above commercial, manufacturing. Can we add parking to all those areas? Technically, we call it the residential public parking program. Is that something we can expand to those areas? Part of the expansion is also going to be co-sharing parking with hopefully schools, large, let's say, business centers or commercial centers that don't use the parking overnight. We're looking at that as well as putting some responsibility onto some of our neighbors, basically some of the multi-families where we can possibly put carports or car lifts. So if you see them, they can lift the car, then they can have both of them. So we're getting the base can be built by everyone if you want to call it that, but it's actually sharing solutions with each other. Hopefully get to where we need to. As far as all the other items that are on the table, if council wants to say, oh, well, the permit's going to be this much, or there's going to be other considerations needed to up and down the whole line of what people can afford and not afford, that can be brought up to council and they'll make those decisions at that time. But it's just like, Carl's asking if it's a straight cost, to say, can this program work based on what the fees that we're charging for it? Right now, it's not working that way. So in the future, if there's allocations for that, then it will be a council decision. But anything going forward is there. But if you have questions specific to your area or everything that we can try to work with our current program now, I'll just have our staff and each one of our cards and please call us. We'll work on that right now. We're not making this studies done or anything like that. So.
Thanks. I do like the idea of using parking spaces from buildings that don't use it overnight. That will relieve a lot of parking issues. Another thing I want to ask is, you mentioned the outreach is through email, phone number, and then this sheet of paper, and you said you're trying to reach 30 to 60 neighborhoods. Did you say, unless they ask you to come, or are you yourself and your team going directly and
We are actively asking the neighborhoods to allow us to come and present the information to them. We're actually at meetings like this or anywhere we're actually sending emails out to the neighborhoods. And my calendar is filling up that way right now. It's, we have about 5 or 6 staff members are actually reaching out to all the neighborhoods, asking for meetings, the traffic committees. Even some people have asked for just meetings for their apartment complexes. We're willing to do that. We just want to make sure we get the message out, or the bill will get really mad if I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that outreach is really important because I was seeing that there was the 1 month of February and March outreach. I'm glad you said in July there will be another possibility to do outreach, and I'm curious if from June to September, there's another possibility to add more community outreach and input from 2023 June to September.
Yeah, during this whole process that we have up there, it's going to be a continuous effort to reach out to the community and everything. As we reach, let's say, how do we structure the scope as a milestone? Let's say we reach 15 or 20 neighborhoods right now. You know, okay, this is what we come up, this is what things like to be. We're going to come out to the neighborhoods again, every one of them, and ask them, okay, this is what we're envisioning. Let's say we have more input. It's going to be an interactive process the whole way through. It's not where it's going to be like, oh, here, come out here, you know, 6 months into the program. But it could be every 2 weeks, it could be every week. It just depends on, obviously, the availability of the neighborhood to meet everything, our availability, and how far and what the studies are showing. So we want to be able to, not just transparent, but show you guys how we're thinking through the process. And if that meets your needs and everything, there are going to be some limitations, some rules, laws, and everything that we're going to have to adhere by, and we'll explain all those as we go along as well.
Yeah, I think understanding the process is one of those things that a lot of people may not know about, and just simply say, well, why can't you just give me a pass, 20 passes, you know? So I think that educational portion is important, just because we did say certain streets have different rules and
Yeah, and each
they all
district,
function differently, so.
yeah, each district has its own resolution. So we have 27 resolutions in the urban parking. So each district, for whatever reason, chose different hours to represent them going forward in urban parking. That was the district's choice. We took the council agreement, and those are the rules we follow. Most of them, 80% of them are like 12 to 6 a.m. and 24/7 parking. There's some that are outliers that are a little bit different, but those districts chose to be that way. And that could be for the influence like near commercial, near manufacturing, and things like that. But going forward, it could be, again, every district could be completely different based on the housing component and what surrounds it. If it's, let's say, a manufacturing area, or it's multi-families, all that has to be looked at and will be looked at as we go forward.
Okay.
I'd just like to add to for Commissioner Romero. They made a great effort to get out to the neighborhoods, we have a complaint. Problem we have right now in the neighborhoods, and we're working on it, is unfortunately 30 of our 64 neighborhoods cannot be there. Due to the fact that the school board will not let us get back in the classroom. We met with the superintendent, we met with people from the school board, they seem very helpful, willing to let us back in. They didn't realize that people that are on the need are the same taxpayers that support the city for that. So where we are right now is the city is supplying 2 schools. How many hours per month they think we're in classrooms? So hopefully by the end of February, the school board to agree and help what they want in exchange. So I hope to have this worked out by March 1st. A meeting February 23rd with school superintendent to see where our progress.
Any additional questions or comments? Yes.
Commissioner Greenside's here. I just wanted to bring up a couple of points and mortify particularly there's a couple of communities of interest. Santa Anita, Artesia Pilar, Logan neighborhood, and Willard. And right across the street from Washington's, where is the Willard neighborhood? In my experience with the parking program, as far as connect, I went to an apartment in the Willard neighborhood, and they said, no, it's only for single family homes, ask your landlord to give you more parking. And I literally just want to be able to host some visitors. So I don't really understand what the rationale was 30 years ago. The true intent was behind putting restrictions of this arbitrary 4 units and below, 5 above, don't get any, because it seems to me that those who live in single family homes have sufficient space for their cars, where they have a single detached family home on the property. But nonetheless, everybody still, you have more space for cars, so the new car and your cars, but nonetheless, I think it's awesome that you're doing the outreach to all the different neighborhoods. Not every neighborhood has the same needs. Some neighborhoods, the one that just mentioned, have a much higher need because it's a free-for-all and it gets really ugly between neighbors. And so along the lines of income, the neighborhood that I just mentioned, even though some of those neighborhoods have high percentages of homeownership, the folks who live there, they're multi-generational. And they're still lower income despite owning property, and they still don't have enough space to park all their cars because they still have multi-generational households and properties. And so to that extent, if there's any way to explore any ideas to maybe base it on income and kind of set a base, so every resident kind of gets at least X, Y, and Z in a park, and that if you want something different, you can base it on income. Because I don't think every household, even within the same neighborhood, is going to look the same either. And then to the same extent of some of the other comments as well is, if there's going to be any limitations per address, those need to be really explained and educated to the public so that everybody can be on the same page and understand why. Because once the community understands it, then they can work together to kind of solve the issue. Okay, we've maxed out our neighborhood permits, so let's explore our neighborhood shuttle so we can use the bus more instead of relying on private transportation. Last but not least, you said that it was up to a year that you would be exploring this process. So that would be the maximum. Does that mean to say that if you receive comments that are favorable, it could be less than that?
Well, if we can get through the studies and adequately address everyone's comments, adequately address the program moving forward, yes. I say up to a year because that's what we have it there. It could be a little bit longer. It just depends on what snags we get along the way. And it could be just like what you're saying, if we're here to explore, let's say, an income level permit distribution, that might take us in a totally different sidetrack and side study that should be looked at, will be looked at. Now that you brought it up, and be all that. It's part of all of the scopes that we have in there already, how to redo the fee structure. And what does that mean to the city? What does it mean to you, to me, to the program itself? So those will be studied. So as far as the timing goes, this is just a tentative timeline. If we need to do it longer, and obviously we're going to have to keep it under cost, we'll make sure that we get all the information. So all that's on the table, everything will be looked at from the standpoint of being able to address your comments, all commissioners' comments, and everything out there as well. So obviously there's going to be a lot of comments that might be the same, so we can address them, not have to address them all in one neighborhood. We can address them generally by sending out information. That cuts down the cost of getting out there to every meeting. But nonetheless, it's still going to be something that definitely we are looking at, and I'm glad you brought it up again. The funny thing is, Willem is where permit parking started. So, and there is one of the, and I laugh a little bit because that was one of the first permit parking neighborhoods. And it also was one of the ones that varied, because in the Willem, you can get up to the 8 plexes can get permits. So there was enough room to do that. Now, obviously over time, like you mentioned earlier, people move in, maybe the kids move back in, it blew out a little bit of the available space. Those are things that we have to look at with this study and say, okay, and to your point, if we max out, what can we do? So transportation, maybe if there's opportunities for car lists, other things like that will be all looked at to be able to maximize the amount of parking out there to meet the density that's needed. So, and all that, that's all, it is on the table right now. So hopefully that answers your question generally, but yeah, the timeline is flexible.
Okay, awesome. And the last thing I want to ask about is if the city technology department has any funds available to develop or implement into the My Santa Ana app or its own app, its own app-based permit instead of having to affix something to your car or display a placard in the window. And then also allows for, temporary visitor parking during the holidays if you have family coming into town. I don't know if that's a possibility or not.
That we can definitely look at. Like I mentioned earlier, it could be something we do with technology. It could be about car reader that goes by and everything, that way you want permits and everything. It could be, based on the new programs that we're looking at. It could be somebody that's already in the program, you just upload the information you need, and then be able to print out a permit, or just the license plate gets tagged, and they're all ready to go. So all the technology going forward is looking at, because we have got a lot of complaints, you know, hey, this thing's tearing up my bumper, or I don't like it. Yeah, all that's on the table. So.
Thank you.
For good, or any comments, nobody else?
Chair, do you have any questions?
Yes, I'd like to extend, I'm sorry, Commissioner Jermaine, and I would like to extend on the educational video. I think it's a great idea for those who can't make meetings or who have carried any kind of literature of what's taking place as far as the work study or how to reply with comments or take the survey. If something online could be created and put on like the website. So I don't know if it's already something in process, already planned, but I think that'd be a great idea to extend the work study to the residents and those who conduct business in the city. Also, I was wondering if the study would be used for any kind of future development as well, as far as how heavily impacted some areas may be versus others, and the intrusion of such a newer expansion in that area. So.
To answer your question, yes. I'll answer your last one first.
In the morning.
Standards and how they affect the local residents, parking and everything else like that. So that's also on the table moving forward. We want to make sure that we address all the issues that occur with permit parking and the sources of those problems. And one of them is usually development. So that is going to be looked at during this whole study. And then just as an FYI, we do have a little blurb on our permit parking page for this study. And then I help a couple of staff at Shell. They were also able to put this on Mixo and just put it throughout the city already as well. So we're growing our media outreach every day that we're moving forward with this.
Awesome, thank you. I don't know if there's any other commissioners that would have any comments.
You guys for allowing me here, appreciate it.
Excuse me, does the chair wish to allow me to seek public comment from a guest that has arrived online?
Yes, the chair does
Just
recognize.
Christopher Fortin, are you interested in speaking on this issue? The meeting will continue. If you're interested, Mr. Fortin, you can join us later. Unless you're trying to reach us, you can unmute yourself. I've just sent you a message to unmute yourself. Give you another few seconds, and then the meeting will continue. Okay, we're ready for the meeting to continue.
Thank you, Commissioners. Lori, could you go to the next screen slide? Commissioners, I'd like to bring your attention to this last slide. On it is that you can use, and everyone in the city can use to share all these ideas with us. We've taken notes of all of that you've shared with us today, but also you can continue to send us emails that we will consider through the development of the scope of work today. And those comments will continue to be used by the consultant when they are on board to address all the concerns that we listed today and any new ones that we have received or will receive from the public. So these are the
Sorry, this is Chair Commissioner Jermaine. Are we still addressing item 4? I don't know, the volume kind of dropped a little bit, so I was wondering if we're still on item 4, if we're.
So Chair, I think we're done with item number 4.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to item 5. It would be the developing a ceremonial street naming policy and appointing to an ad hoc committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why I asked, because I believe I had heard you, Nabil, but the screen share was still reflecting from the permit parking. So
What do you see now?
now I see the emblem for the city of Santa Ana.
Reduce it now.
Yeah, and then look for your privilege. Yeah, that was. Share.
Thank you. I can see that.
Good evening, commissioners. I would like to present to you a request to develop an ad hoc committee as directed by our city council to develop a policy on ceremonial street naming. I'd like to have a discussion and the development of the ad hoc committee. The objectives of this committee and the ceremonial street naming policy that we would like to develop is to establish a written policy to allow ceremonial street naming, establish a fee for that process, and put that in our miscellaneous fee schedule where it's finished. We'd like to amend the municipal code to allow for such a process and establish an ad hoc committee made of commissioners here at ETAC, comprised of not more than 3 commissioners to develop that policy. And after the development of that policy, we'll take it to the full. The ad hoc committee will develop the policy, help us develop the policy. We'll take it to the full ETAC commission for approval and followed by recommendation to the city council on the new policy. Next. The ad hoc committee would be established to discuss, review, and approve staff recommendations of the ceremonial street naming policy. The ad hoc commission will be comprised of not more than 3 commissioners. It will meet twice. The ad hoc committee will not be subject to the Brown Act, which means it will not be open to the public. The committee would disband after the approval of the policy and after the second meeting. The time frame on the policy development is we would like to take it to the full ETAC commission for our meeting on April 12th, 2022, and hopefully we'll take it to the full council for approval on the May 17th council meeting. The next step is I would like to have the chair go through a nomination of 3 commissioners that would like to help us out in the development of the policy. It would be an ad hoc committee again, no more than 3 commissioners. Mr. Chair, if you would like to open it for nominations. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to nominate. Now, individuals can nominate themselves as well, right?
Sure.
Okay, so I think I'll open it up to where I like to nominate myself. And then if there are any other commissioners who would like to step up to do this task, that would be excellent.
I was told earlier today, Chair Jermaine, that it's your decision that if you can do exactly as you're doing, seeking volunteers for this. Thank you.
Okay, all right, all right. I'd like to, I'll put nominations, Romero, and also nominate Greensides.
Is that a nomination you're suggesting Commissioner Romero, Commissioner Greensides?
Yes.
The commissioners accept the nominations.
Accept. This is Commissioner Green says, yes.
Commissioner Romero is accepts.
Thank you.
It's going to be Chair Jermaine, Commissioners Romero and Greensides on this ad hoc committee. Thank you.
May I make a comment, Commissioner Green says? I'm glad that you nominated me. I think it's really important in our community that we honor and recognize people like Helen Shipp, who started the Black History Month parade here in Orange County, and people like Mr. Bussey, who's now 108 years old, oldest living Black man in Orange County, as well as Ruben Salazar, who used to live here in Santa Ana, but he was killed during the civil rights movement by the police. So the more we can ingrain the names of the people of our communities who brought us here, the better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just like to comment to, I very much support this, because we try to, Steve McQueen passed away of cancer. We did so much work for the zoo, and we try to get a name, street named after him, and just skip around the rock wall. So I'm very supportive of this program.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, just to give you a roadmap for this, the next time we meet, we will have the draft, a policy and proposed municipal code changes that will present that to you, we'll discuss that, make some changes, come back to you for the final product as an ad hoc committee, then followed by bringing it to the entire ETAC for review and approval. Once that happens, we'll take it to the city council. So we will start with a product that staff thinks that is appropriate for the city, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item 6, it's My Santa Ana app overview. Would staff please introduce themselves in the item?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Pedro Guillen, our Deputy Director of Street Maintenance or Maintenance Services.
To the right. That one. Just screenshot. Yeah. This below the blue screen, yeah, that, and then share. Share. Yeah, there you go. Commissioner, can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, so. The city. No one told me about it.
City of Santa Ana cares about keeping our streets clean and safe. When you see an issue, it's easy to report it using the My Santa Ana app. Make sure you downloaded the free app on your mobile phone. Open the app and press the Report an Issue button. Choose the category that best describes the issue and the type of location. The app will automatically geotag your location and you'll take a quick photo. Once you've submitted the report, it is sent directly to city staff who will come out and resolve the issue. It's fast, it's easy, and before you know it, you help our city become better. Every little bit counts, and together we can help Santa Ana stay great. For more information about our efforts and the My Santa Ana app, please visit www.santa-ana.org/app.
Okay. You may recognize some of the actors in the video. Thank you very much. I am Pedro Guillen. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director for Maintenance Services, and on behalf of the Information Technology Department, we'll be providing an update, just a brief presentation on the city's app. So I'm going to go through it, discuss some of the analytics and things that have been available for the public to request service on, and then I'll open up for some questions as best I can respond. So as it states, the tagline for the app is basically puts the power of reporting city government services in the palm of the residents' hands. And it can be downloaded to your smartphone and using the Google Play or App Store. As well, you can go on the city's website and report online. Again, the city's IT department manages the app. So in total, there are 26 service options. This has grown over the last few years. These are the most requested services. Obviously, it's not every service that the city provides, but these are the most frequent services, from potholes, streetlights, illegal dumping, encampments, code enforcement violations, parking issues, graffiti, abandoned vehicles on the streets. So all these options are available to report for response by city staff. And in terms of reporting, it's fairly simple after you download the app. First and foremost, you have a home screen. You have a variety of options to look up city hall hours information, COVID information, the temperature, and ultimately report an issue. So as noted on the screen there, and on your handouts incorporating the agenda, you can submit, report an app, click it. You have all the service options that come up, click that, takes you to the next screen, and it's geocoding your location. So it's GPSing where you are. Click next, and then you can take a picture of the service request. So you can report it anonymously or just submit. That information is then provided to the departments that are responsible for that service. What happens to that request, right? So you want to know if it got done. So you can easily verify what happened with your request by, again, going to the home screen. On the top right, there's 3 hash marks. Click on My Reports. In this example, it's a pothole. We'll submit on such date. You go into the next screen, and you have two options for details and activity. The details will provide the close date and submitted date and some information. Go to activity. Not only will it tell you that the service is closed, it will provide you after close. So you have the after close available for your viewing as well. So as mentioned, the other 26 services are running across the board, across the city. The Public Works Agency is busy, as you can see from the information provided. My division alone handles 13 of the 26 services. Water Resources handles 1 or 2 technically. Engineering has several, as well as 6. Planning and Building Code Enforcement has a couple. And then Police Department has a few. So as you can see, annually, I think last year we had 77,000 service requests reported. Of those, about 90% came from my division. So it's an extremely high number of requests that come in, then followed by the other divisions throughout the city. You can see that there. In terms of the top 10 services requested by the public, again, these are requests from the public. Graffiti by and large is the highest, 36,000 requests that come in, followed by illegal dumping, encampment cleanups, and then code enforcement violations and the rest there. So these are top 10 from number 1 on top to 10 on the bottom. Then there's 26 reported service options. So in terms of what we do with the app internally, so we get all these requests, we analyze them and see where we have to dedicate more services. As you can see, if we go back, you can see that graffiti, illegal dumping, encampment are the highest. In terms of response, I can tell you graffiti, we get to it in about 24 hours. That's extremely fast. Illegal dumping about the same rate. Encampment's about close to 2 days. It's actually under 2 days. Code enforcement 3 days. Trees about 9 days. We average about 8 to 10 service requests per day for trees. So there's a significant backlog on that, and that's actually pretty quickly responded to. Saving parking, that's an issue that we're having. It kind of ties into the permit parking program of the city. We have a lot of challenges with parking in certain areas of the city. So police department responds to those. And then we also respond to sidewalk defects, replacement, potholes, you name it. So this gives you the information, and then we try to adjust our resources to accommodate the highest need out in the public. And I know across the board, across the city, all the other divisions and departments do the same. So that's pretty much the gist of it. In terms of marketing, over the years, the city has placed a lot of effort on marketing and pushing this out. And from the media, social media, push shelter advertising, direct emails, public meetings. It's on our stationery, it's on our email. So it's pretty much out there. In terms of information, we constantly request new users because we only have a certain limited number of staff. So obviously the individuals that live in the city see things before we do many times. So we invite people to submit these requests, and we get to them as soon as we can. That doesn't mean we won't be out there proactively. I can tell you that my division alone closes out about 200,000 service requests, work orders per year. So this is not everything that the city does. It's just what is pushed through the app. A lot of stuff would get taken care of, but that helps us get to it faster. So we rely on it to get things done. Finally, I want to leave you with this, and I'll open it for questions.
The city of Santa Ana cares about keeping their streets clean and safe. When you see an issue, it's easy to report it using the My Santa Ana app. Make sure you downloaded the free app on your mobile phone. Open the app and press the Report an Issue button. Choose the category that best describes the issue. The app will automatically geotag your location, and you'll take a quick photo. Once you've submitted the report, it is sent directly to city staff, who will come out and resolve the issue. It's fast, it's easy, and before you know it, you've helped our city become better. Every little bit counts, and together we can help Santa Ana stay great. For more information about our efforts and the My Santa Ana app, please visit www.santa-ana.org/apps.
So again, that's just some of the examples of marketing that the city put out. These commercials were put out, I think, on YouTube, social media I think it was last year. So I think there's about 4 or 5 of them that was disseminated across social media. City put a lot of time and effort into doing that. So we're pretty proud of the city's app. And as always, as anything else, there's always room for improvement. So I'll welcome any comments and information you may want to provide. And obviously working with our IT department. If anyone has any questions, I'm available to respond.
This is Commissioner Benninger. The app's been around for a while. And first, we have some older folks that are not comfortable with it. How much usage is there in the city? What do you estimate? Like percent of citizens in the city use it?
I don't know. I know it's tens of thousands. I don't know if it's 100,000, but I can tell you it's maybe I feel it's not. I know it's I'd say hovering to 50,000 users. Now some disappear, that kind of thing, but I believe it's about 50,000 registered users over the years. And just for some clarification, you mentioned that it's been open for a while. If I can explain the difference. Public Works Payment Services, we have our own now. Over the years, it became such a popular app because it's always been popular for us in terms of service and the information provided indicates how high it is used. So it was expanded to a citywide program. So IT took over and it expanded across the city. So this version of the app has been in play for about 3 years. And it's across the board. So it touches most agencies across the city, most departments. So in terms of users, I can tell you it's been about 50,000 over the years. That some of them may pop up once a year. I can tell you we have some people designated super users, which report 1 every 5 feet. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's every 5 feet. There's a picture, and that we get them done and create some challenges because now the service is trying to find every nook and cranny. But anyway, we welcome them. So it helps us. But anyway, it's very popular amongst many individuals, and we can't see everything. In terms of illegal dumping, just expand on the number of staff. I have 5 full-time staff for close to 30 square miles. So without people submitting it, it's very challenging. Today we had a request where we had debris in the corner of an alley, dead end alley. So we typically don't drive through that, So we rely on people willing to snow, and so we welcome them.
It's a new trash only contact we have for Mr. Jefferson.
It may, I'm not directly involved in it, but but I likely will be. There will be a reporting option as we noticed on trash. So hopefully we can integrate that and this pickup, people just submit like a pothole or
Commissioner Green says, and first I want to say, if YouTube showed me those kinds of ads, I'd stop paying for YouTube because I got tired of the junk ads, but then you put some videos together. And random question on that, is the city running these as ads or are they just posted on the internet for the general public viewing?
I believe they were pushed out by the city early last year. So it was basically the spring, if you recall, or after, tell us when you filmed it, but I think it was about 34th of last year. And they were pushed out heavily. So they were pushed out, they were ready available. If you clicked on City of Santa, that's one of the things that came out. I don't know if it's that high on the search list that the results list that at this point. But I found them. I just said graffiti and it popped up. So it's pretty ready to go.
And so with the advertising of those or any videos for this app, did it result in increased users?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the numbers on that? Okay. And then it's cool that you get to report things, but one of the things that some folks are talking about is, parking ticket disputes. So when they get a parking ticket, especially when street sweeping or traffic pickup doesn't happen as scheduled for whatever reason it may be, there have been some reports of residents who got ticketed, even though they were legally parked during the allowable hours, but the street sweeper came late and then they got a ticket. And so is there a way that folks can dispute tickets to this app?
I'm not aware of it outside of the departments feature where you click on the departments and call the police department. I know if you get a ticket, I think literally on the back of the ticket, it states what you can do in terms of appeal. So I'm aware of that. But I know you can, basically it's like a web, it directs you to the city's website to click on appropriate.
Okay. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's pretty cool that you can take pictures in the app and it makes it pretty quick. Like, hey, I literally just got this ticket and I can park here. I don't know why. I think it might be helpful in submitting evidence to make an appeal.
Yeah, that could be exactly push that.
And then last point I have is when graffiti is reported, I saw that you said the response time is a day, which is
On average.
okay. And that's good. And so my question is that for all reports? Is that for specific kinds of reports? And what does that actually mean? What is the action that's taken when that response time is a day?
So specific to graffiti and all of my services, it's when it's cleaned up or moved. So we have a bunch of trash here, it's gone, cleaned up. That's my closure. If you only did half the job, it stays open. So that closure would be delayed, obviously, it'd be 5 days, it takes 5 days. So ours are proven, I can verify that. And again, I think it's high number of services that we respond to. But just to add on to that, sometimes graffiti may be an hour, could be half an hour, could be 5 minutes. But on average, that's what we think on average, right? So sometimes, the reason I say it's a day could be the average, the true average could be, or mean could be lower. Because our guys climb fences, they go on roofs, and that takes some time. So the actual average is skewed in the negative. And those are the ones that for the hours are longer. For the most part, we are, I'd like to say you report in the morning and it's not really, right? That's typical.
Good to know. And the reason I ask is because specifically I'm thinking of El Centro Cultural de Mexico on North Broad Street. I know that there's probably some very upset individuals, of the homeless individuals who keep showing up in the parking lot, but that center is working very hard with the individuals who are unhoused to make sure that they have what they need to not be camping in the parking lot there yet. I know that this app is used regularly, even at the city council meeting where the matter was discussed about assessing lien on the property. There were reports that morning of somebody using the My Santa Ana app that there's still individual unhoused folks living there. And like you mentioned, super users. Karens who like to report things. And so my concern is that if it's this easy to process, especially for super users at the bottom, to make these reports, are those repeated reports from the same individual user being taken into consideration for things like garbage or?
Yes, they can directly go to, in that particular case, another support action. So it's escalated to that point for whatever reasons. If a property owner is not maintaining his property, leaves, whatever, and there's a case created, all that is evidence, you know. So all that is not only looked at, obviously, it's responded to by whatever department is responsible for that. But you know, if it's something that needs to be addressed in a different manner, all that becomes evidence, you know, in terms of a nuisance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wood, I'm glad you mentioned the aspect of super users. I think in my apartment myself, we reported about 17,000 to 35,000 per day. And I just wanted to attest the fact that in most cases, when we report graffiti throughout South Santa Ana, it is literally gone within 6 to 8 hours. Lost and after it's gone. So I commend you on that. And the other thing is, I don't know if you mentioned this, but users can also elect at the end of the submission to give feedback, to report back when it's been closed. So we always do that, so we know
Yes.
it's clear enough. We get it back, the problem has been solved. So it's great.
Yes. And so you have an option to comment, obviously.
Commissioner Romero, from these totals for the top 10 services, have you seen an increase or decrease in the last 3 years? How have those numbers changed? since the app?
Well, the app is 3 years old, this version of the app, I can tell you, the one that's increased significantly is the homeless encampment for that. That's been a dramatic increase, where it was 1 every 3 days, it's now 1 every 3 per hour. So in terms of the debris, cleaning the rain stuff behind. Illegal dumping, I can tell you, our services have been realigned to focus on that. There's a lot of there's a lot of graffiti. We have a graffiti problem in the city. Just to be very candid about it. We have a graffiti problem in the city. The service, I would say, is one of the best in Southern California. We presented in other cities, and they come talk to us. We presented in other cities. So yeah, we have an excellent service partner in that respect. But in terms of the one that I know has increased, is it has been debris left behind by homeless individuals or some that has significant increase.
I haven't used the app myself, but I eventually will. I think it's a great tool to have. I'm curious how people were able to report some of these things before the app, or people, if there's a way that people can report without the app, and is it in multiple languages?
So I don't believe it's in multiple languages. In terms of, but that's something, a great point. The previous way, and still an option, is to report through Public Works Dispatch. And that's been around for that. And there we still receive over 20,000 calls per year. So that hasn't did. So people like to call sometimes, like to speak to our nice operators, or dispatchers, I should say. Some people don't like to speak anymore. They're on the go, so they use that. So we have a variety. And then we also have the web option as well, as I mentioned, at your desktop. So you don't have to use the phone, you can just go onto your desktop and report it online. And it's on the homepage of the city website. So that's been around for a while.
Does the app have that somewhere that it says you could go to the website or
Yes, I think it's on the
email or phone number in case a friend wants to tell somebody else, hey, you can just email?
so you would click on to where the city website somewhere on here, I think, City Hall, and that takes you to the city's website.
Okay.
And then you can, remove it. We also, good point, Laura. We also have a dedicated graffiti hotline. It's 1-877 STOP-TAG. That's been around for about 10 years, 9 years. And that, in addition to the Public Works Dispatch, people can strictly report graffiti. That was a request from the community about 10 years ago. So that's still a thriving one. We have a dedicated staffer, just all he does is answer that line. And he's busy. So we have a lot of service needs in our city, and I think we, as a community, as public works, we can respond.
Commissioner Romero, I just opened the app and there is an option, say, who do I call on the app itself? And if you press on that, there's a whole bunch of phone numbers with associated services that you can call. Now, right, with 2 clicks, and you're right there, you'll be able to call us or report the issues to us. So that's a real.
Any other questions? Maybe you can get an autograph from the actor there.
Thank you, Pedro, for the
This is Chair Jermaine. It seems like we lost the video of the conference room. We still have the emblem as the video for the conference room.
I'll see about resolving that.
Reduce this.
Go to Zoom. 150,000 go to Zoom. Yeah, 150,000. Go to Zoom. Hey. Say share.
Can you see us again?
Yes, I can. That's it. So this is Chair Jermaine. Looks like we've concluded with item number 6, and at this time, we'll move on to item 7, active transportation program update. Would staff please introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce Silke Krola, of Acting Deputy Director of Public Works Agency and Acting City Engineer, to give us an update on active transportation. Is that?
Just give me a second, please. One down, one below.
You have to stop and restart the screen.
Yeah. That one? Is it? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Zephyr with the city's traffic engineering, and I want to just give you a quick presentation here on the active transportation program. Just to let you know, there are a lot of picture slides towards the end, and I'll kind of be going through those quickly. So, in terms of active transportation, it's important to know what are the needs and why do we have these projects and programs in place for active transportation. Well, I'm sure all of you guys have been throughout the city during different times of the day, morning, afternoon, different parts of the city. And the city does have a high demand of pedestrian activity, and that's just a fact. Some of the areas, some of the coastal cities, they have a lot of tourism, but in Santa Ana, it's a lot of locals that are out and about. And we need to make sure that we provide them the necessary facilities to walk around where they need to. Some of the pictures on the screen here, the top ones are from some of the school locations here in the city. And I'm always amazed when I go look at pedestrian volumes, do observations, how many kids actually just flood the crosswalks. And that's just typical occurrence throughout the city. But I also mentioned areas, and we have a high concentration of kids that walk, and we have some schools that have up to 80% of students that walk. That's amazing. But it's not just the schools. I mean, downtown is definitely our highest pedestrian activity in the whole city. Unfortunately, it's also the area that has the highest pedestrian collisions in the whole city. So there's definitely a correlation there. But it's not just children that we have to worry about. You know, we have different users. We do have a couple of high density senior housing in the downtown. So we obviously have to make sure that the facilities that we have provide the adequate facilities for the residents that may be disabled or have limited mobility. But it's not just everyone that walks we have to worry about. Skateboarders are very popular in the city. They have some challenges that we have to deal with them specifically. But we also have a lot of bicyclists. And one of the things that I know that I've seen throughout the years is that we are getting better at putting bicycle facilities, but we have a long way to go. Many years ago when I first started, bicycle facilities were not on the agenda. So it's really nice to be working with the city now where the philosophy has changed and it's changing for the better. Transit users, the city has a tremendous amount of need for the community to use the transit. 50% of the busiest bus stops are here in Orange County. So there's definitely need for transit accessibility throughout the city. The other thing too is health. I mean, unfortunately, you look at some of the statistics in the healthcare agency, obesity, diabetes, those are common things here. Why could be part of the issue of lacking ability. We want to make sure that we promote ability for residents to get out and about to address some of those challenges. One of the things too is the mere fact that the city of Santa Ana was unfortunate to have a lot of pedestrian and bicycle collisions. We had a traffic study, a safety study that was done several years ago, and it identified that over the course of about 10-year average, there's about 150 pedestrian accidents per year, 6 pedestrian fatalities, 175 bicycle accidents per year, and 2 bicycle fatalities. So that's just unacceptable. What the city has done is, over the course of years, looked at several planning documents. These planning documents that we've developed have basically laid the foundation of what we want to do moving forward to address some of the concerns we've had. On the slide here, it talks about the first one is Safe Mobility Santa Ana. That is a citywide traffic safety study that was conducted going on 6 years now. We identified corridors that have high collisions, intersections with high collisions, and identified improvements for those corridors. I want to point out that we're currently finalizing an agreement with a consultant because it's time to update that. So maybe in a year or so, we'll definitely be coming back. Or as the study being conducted, to ETAC just to update you on that specific study because it is very critical in terms of the safety of the city. We've also conducted 2 complete streets, one in the central part of the city and then one in the downtown. These studies identified a lot of corridors or several corridors where we want to enhance all the mobility for bikes, peds, you name it, even cars too. We want to make sure that these complete streets, all the users are included. And these have identified some of the projects that we've been applying for grants. We also have the active transportation plan, which identified the different bicycle corridors throughout the city and identified priority corridors for bicycle projects. And the latest one we completed a year and a half ago was the Safe Route to School. That was really labor intensive. We identified all of the improvements around the different schools. There was a lot of community input, specifically at the schools, walking audits, and we've been very successful. Some of the other cities that I've talked to have referenced or at least reached out to us to see how we did that. So that's one of the things that kind of put us in the radar with other local jurisdictions. So the plans are one thing, and for us, it's important to not just have plans. I don't want a plan that sits on the desk. I don't want to just collect dust. We pursue grants, and this year we're actually pursuing some of the ATP grants. This is our cycle year where we have all the grants coming up, and we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy. The slide is all those applications you see are done by in-house staff. I'll probably say that we don't consult with that because we have a detailed information. We have all the information in-house to prepare these applications. In 2020, we applied for 21 ATP applications. It was unfortunate that we only received 1, but I'm stubborn. I'm going to reapply because if I don't get it the first time, I'll get it the second time. That's my philosophy. In terms of the past 7 years, the grants we received, it's about in a total of 42 different ATP grants from different funding sources, about 7 different grant funding sources. The amount in funds that we received is about $77 million. We are probably one of the highest or most successful cities in the state, in my opinion, particularly with ATP. What I want to kind of point out is what have these grants provided for? And that's a lot of money, a lot of projects, but it provides a variety of different things that we can do. First of all, the planning. I talked about all those planning documents that we prepared over the course of the years. That comes from grant funding. We unfortunately don't have funding in-house to prepare those, but those are really critical because it gives us a roadmap to where we want to go. Talking about that, I mentioned the SAMHSA study, the safety study that we're going to be doing, but we're also, for the first time, we're going to start looking at developing a streetlight master plan. We want to make sure that we identify where we have the need for additional lighting, how to prioritize that. we in our department recently, well, last year we took over the street lights, so that's one of the things that we prioritize, because we want to implement those improvements as part of the whole program, so that we have walking at night. We want to make sure people can see where they're going, as well as the streets. The grants have also provided a variety of bike lane improvements. All we have to do is walk out in the building, what you see out there, the bike lanes that are out here, in Civic Center, we go on Bristol, Edinger, those all were grant funded, so that's where the money is going. It's kind of neat because again, I see the growth in our bike network throughout the city. When we completed Edinger, I was thinking, wow, I could go from downtown, from my office, all the way to San Diego now, where before. So little by little, we're getting there. The grants also provide a lot of sidewalk improvements, wheelchair ramps, missing sidewalk. If the sidewalk has uplifts, when we get the grants, it provides the funding for those type of improvements. And we also have crosswalk improvements. We want to make sure that the fifth intersection, we can get across safely, as safely as possible. So we've had locations where we add crosswalk, enhance the crosswalks, we'll put some of those rectangular flashing beacons to make sure that motorists can actually identify and be aware that there is a pedestrian crossing at that time. And then there's educational outreach, and I'll give a shout out to Jordan. She's working with us right now with the OTS grant. That's part of it. We've been pretty successful at continuing to get OTS grants year after year after year. So it's part of it. We want to make sure that the community knows how to walk safely and be safe out in the roadway. So the next slide, what I want to do is just kind of run through some of these projects that we've completed. The first one here is on Maple at Waycamp. That's part of the Maple Bike Trail. Now, what we did here is we previously to the project, we didn't have any crosswalks on most of the crossing there. We ended up putting crosswalks at all the locations that don't have a stop sign. That's what's shown here on this picture. Different angle. This is just showing the view from the motorist. We ended up adding signage at the location at the crossing, advanced signage legends, just to alert motorists that we're approaching a crosswalk. The next slide shows just kind of hard to tell here, but there's a bulb out here that shortens the crossing for the bicyclists, runners, pedestrians, whoever's out there, and it has a directional wheelchair ramp. So if you're walking in one way or the other way, you have the shortest crossing possible. One of the older bulbouts that we currently have is Broadway and Walnut. If you guys are familiar with this intersection, it is very close to Henninger as well as Santa Ana High School. So this is one of the school crossings that are implemented with a lot of kids. We ended up in this location here because of the number of students that cross there. This particular location does have a beacon so that when the students are crossing, they push the button, alerts the motorists that, hey, children are in the vicinity or crossing. This is just a zoomed up section of the intersection there. Another project that I was pretty happy that we were able to get in is the Hazard road diet. Hazard used to have 2 lanes in each direction, and one of the common concerns we receive from residents is when we do have multi-lanes and such as Hazard, is that if you've got a slow car, and there's a car that's kind of itchy to kind of pass them up, pass them up, right? One of the things that we ended up doing here is we move from the travel lanes, and by doing that, we basically eliminate the opportunity for motorists to do that, or at least substantially reduce it. And we may have some knuckleheads, which I actually call a technical term, that are going to do it. But I think for the most part, by doing the road diets, you have the prudent driver setting the speed for the cars behind them. So that in and of itself is a safety enhancement. So this is what it looks like out there right now. It has 1 in each direction. It has protected bikeways, cycle tracks all on the sides. And at the intersections, we actually narrowed the intersection. So we do have that pedestrian crossing, take the cross a shorter distance. This project here, I think, is one of my personal favorites. This picture here shows a bicyclist that is actually headed over to one of the local entries. It shows the raised
protected median separating the vehicles, lanes for the bicyclists. It's kind of hard to tell in the picture, but at the intersection, we also have striping across the intersection to help further alert motorists, hey, there's a bicyclist, there's a path, be careful, watch out. We also have signage at this location that notify the motorists to yield when they're turning right for bicyclists. The last part I was going to highlight here is Civic Center. The project itself was from the limits included the West Broadway and on the east of Santiago. Here's a quick overview of some of the rollouts, the traffic circles that were installed as part of this project. What I want to do is just highlight some of the first. It may not seem like a lot, but that traffic signal, this is, it's named at Civic Center. If you look at the crosswalk, this was our first high visibility crosswalk at a traffic signal. And why we're doing this? Because it's safe to say identified that we're still having a lot of pedestrian accidents at signalized intersections. So this is something that we will be seeing more and more in the city as we're coming up with projects. We're going to start changing that out. We want to make sure that every driver understands that at that intersection, crosswalks, there's pedestrians, and this is one of the improvements that we're going to be doing as a citywide policy moving forward. We also ended up adding a median. I was actually asked not too long ago, why would you put a median? How is that a safety benefit? Well, if you look at, unfortunately, I don't have it before and after this shot or this location, but a median actually helps you break up the street, and it does make the street visually smaller, narrower. So it actually does promote lower speeds, and that's one of the things that we consider when we're putting this median on the island. This one also has a brand new crosswalk, French. Yep, the community actually asked for this, and this is one of the locations that we added one. We still want to upgrade this up to a step higher. We want to put some of those rectangular flashing beacons. It unfortunately was not part of the project, but it's still on our list to enhance that in the future. And the last thing that I just want to point out in Civic Center is all of the traffic circles. We've had a lot of positive feedback on those. Unfortunately, some residents feel a little confused when they approach these for the first time. There is a learning curve associated with traffic circles, no doubt about it, but they have definitely helped out. And I myself, when I drive, I have to slow down because the car in front of me. I see the brake lights, they slow down and move around. They're very efficient at moving cars through the intersection at lower speeds. So overall, I think this particular project, the corridor, has definitely been improved in terms of safety because the speeds are definitely a lot lower in the road. So with that, I just want to go ahead and open it up if anyone has any questions.
Commissioner, I'm just going to make a quick comment. It's a great presentation. I like the fact that you included the picture and the philosophy of the median that you did. I noticed that in Costa Mesa, that people are trying to move the Irvine Boulevard over to Newport Boulevard, so they'll cut through these residential areas quickly. And Costa Mesa went through a lot of streets and put the long outs and medians, and it's visual, it's right there. There's cars that kind of slow down and move around them, so it does get a good break to the traffic. So hopefully, in areas where traffic is coming to the city, trying to avoid, traffic and get through residential areas. So then you work at it.
Absolutely.
I'd like Mr. Robert May to comment on this along with that. We're putting out a lot of bike lanes. What are we doing to encourage people to use bikes? Having programs to encourage to use bikes in the city?
That is one of the things. We do have some of the outreach that's been conducted to encourage that. Commissioner Romero definitely speak on that behalf. But that's the educational side of things. One of the things that I know that's been on my to-do list for a while is the creation of a very robust website, so we could promote that, the safety rules, where to get more information on bicycling, walking, and everything else. That is still on our to-do list, and I think that is one of the mechanisms that we could use to promote that.
In years past in the city, we had bicycle days and various parks, you need to issue license for different groups to work on bikes, and sort of events on bikes. Excuse me, I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Benjamin. I'd still like to see some of those programs come back to encourage. I think they gave out helmets and encourage the safety, and I think that'd be real positive.
We currently still have bike rodeos, which are very similar to that. We don't actually necessarily issue a license, but the police department would. But we do actually have events like that where we reach out to the community, come in and promote the bicycling ability in the city.
You know, Commissioner Romero wants to come.
Hi, Commissioner Romero. I guess I'll speak a little bit about the things that we do with Santa Ana Active Streets. We do have bike education classes, we do community bike rides. We have a program that teaches participants how to fix their own bicycle. And a lot of what we talk about is how to encourage bicycle riding and how to be an independent bike rider. And there's a lot connected to it, specifically with safe streets. A lot of people don't feel safe riding their bicycles, so they drive. But there are a lot of people that ride their bicycle already. If you stand on a busy corner, you'll see a ton of bicyclists. Oftentimes, maybe they don't look like what a cyclist could look like because they don't have helmets, they don't have bike lights, they don't have cycling gear. So with the OTS funding that ZT provides for SAS, we say SAS for short, we are able to provide those resources to some degree to the population. But I can talk to you more about that another time. Aside from SAS, what I do see is there is a big effort to implement, these projects, and I think it's a good step, it's a good direction. That's the implementation part, but I do think the education part is where more attention could be needed, because all of a sudden there's a different infrastructure and people aren't familiar with how to navigate it, and it will take time for people to be comfortable with it, and there could be a bike lane, but people are so used to riding on the sidewalk, they prefer to ride on the sidewalk. So it will take time. For me, the education part is important. Similar to the parking permits, people don't know what are the rules to having parking permits. So, and with the updates to the traffic safety plans, I do think that's good, especially since maybe it's been like 5 to 8 years since those plans have come about, and I'm sure there's updates, right? And seeing what have been accomplished and what we need to keep working on. And I guess I'll finish with, for me, I think about what are the missing parts. It seems like there's a lot of work to do, but we can identify key areas in the city, and probably the main focus, I don't know if I'm wrong, but probably the main focus are those large arterial roads, the wider roads, the busiest roads. But I think about the smaller neighborhoods who sometimes could be more affected by people speeding through just to cut through, right? So to avoid that traffic, to avoid, the street lights and stuff like that. So I begin to think, okay, what about the neighborhoods? What about the families that live there? And if there is outreach for these updated traffic safety plans, definitely hearing those voices in those smaller communities.
Commissioner Greenside's here. Thank you for the presentation. I think it's awesome that you're gonna be reapplying for some of these grants. That's awesome to hear. One of my questions about the grants is, do you work with any other agencies, either at the county or state level, to apply for these grants, or even intra the city with other departments? Because my understanding is grant applications can sometimes be more competitive if you're working, say, one of the ideas that popped in my brain is obviously, yes, community development agency, shutting down at least one of the major streets on a Saturday. This happens up in San Francisco quite regularly. They shut down Market Street and local vendors come out, set up shops, local food trucks, and then one Saturday a month, there's an outdoor venue where people can showcase their local businesses, their groups, organizations. It also promotes that the environmental friendliness of getting outdoors and not just dedicating street space for cars usage only. So I don't know if that's something your department does when you're doing grant applications.
The one that is most complex in terms of having to have coordination with either agencies or even residents is an ATP application. One of the requirements is that you have to have extensive amount of community outreach. And those plans I talked about, that is the outreach that we leverage as part of the application. Having said that, we always reach out when we apply to the neighborhood associations. We're going to do it a little bit harder this time or more aggressively, because unfortunately we reach out to all 64. And if we receive 5 letters of support, we got a lot. This year we're doing a little bit different. We're going to follow up, just to get those letters of support. So that's one of the things. The other thing too is we do work very closely with the healthcare agency, because that specific application requires some of the health statistics. Why are these projects benefiting your community? And that's where diabetes, obesity comes into play. They provide specific information to us that we incorporate into each individual application for the particular area. So they probably don't like me, because we have a list of 20 locations and they have to look at each of those locations individually. But that's what we do. So we definitely coordinate with the community, primarily healthcare agency, because that is a requirement of the application.
One other agency I was thinking of in particular is one really traffic area during heavy commute hours is right next to the Venus High School in Fairview. It's atrocious during rush hour. And I have a few friends who say their kids would rather just walk home on the riverbed because it's faster than picking them up in a car. So with the riverbed in mind, I know that's the jurisdiction of the county. Is there ever any interaction with city departments at the county level, other county departments to apply for these sort of competitive grants that fall within Santa Ana's boundaries? Like, for example, the riverbed is a perfect example where it's not Santa Ana, but it's the county.
The riverbeds are actually handled by our Parks and Rec department, but I do know that they have an agreement with the county. If there's any opportunity, they would actually enter into grants jointly. And there's an opportunity for any riverbed that we have in the city, that agreement's in place. If the city can find funding and the county jointly, they can pursue those opportunities. Yeah.
Is that something you're maybe going to be doing with some of the upcoming reapplications?
To be honest with you, no, the ones we're resubmitting are primarily some of the corridors that have been identified in some of the studies, and the majority of them actually safe route to school. So improvements around the actual school site that were identified. I don't think right now we'll have time to look at additional. Trust me, there's 20 of them. We're going to be busy several months, at least 3-4 months. But that's something we could look at moving forward, and maybe partnership to the point of partner with Parks and Rec to see if we could help them apply for some of those child projects.
Thank you for that. And I know you mentioned the streetlight master plan would be updated in the near future. And my question about that is, how much does your department work with technology folks here at the city level to implement studies of our own instead of having to utilize outside sources? Or do the studies actually come from our own internal departments when you're doing that sort of study?
For this one here, it would probably have to be, it has to be an outside source, because I do not believe we have the in-house specialty for that. and it is extremely labor intensive. We're gonna have to maybe have someone really go into all these locations to identify the actual condition of the holes possibly, and start doing that a lot of in-depth analysis of what we actually have out there. Even our in-house staff, we might be able to do it, but to be quite honest with you, we just simply don't have the resources to do it.
Thank you. And then the last one I'll bring up is just, I know you mentioned skateboarding. There's a lot of skateboarding that happens here in the city. And in some areas of the city, if you're caught skateboarding, cops will stop you and say, hey, you can't do that here. So in any of these plans and updating, making sure we're getting all kinds of active transportation engaged, is there any discussion or any points brought up by community members about decriminalizing skateboarding around the city?
Well, I do know that some of the municipal code sections have to be revised because in some areas you can't ride on the street, you can't ride on the sidewalk, they're going to ride. So that's not necessarily related to the grants, but that is one thing that we are looking at. We're going to eventually add a scooter program back in the city, not right now. But with all the construction in the downtown, which is where the scooter program is most popular, it just won't work right now. But when we're applying and looking at that program, that's where we're going to start looking at the code and changes to decriminalize the skateboarders because it is an issue that we have in the city. And that's going to be part of that particular program.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Bender, and a couple things that have come up. One of them, I'm pure supporter that we need to give advice for these kids to ride skateboards. Is there any discussion, maybe this is part of preparation of the place, any discussion of expanding the building skateboard parks in the city?
Yeah, I would have to defer to Parks and Rec on that, and I'm not sure if we have any plans on that.
And I don't know whether this is public works or not. We have a beautiful bike structural lock system right outside City Hall. That's locked up there. Any plans to activate that?
Are you talking about the bike box?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the storage area, still bikes and ride bike the city.
Yeah, it's the bike shelter. On that one, unfortunately, it will be removed. Unfortunately, it was never really used. And in terms of maintenance, it was a major issue. The windows get broken all the time. We had bicycles stolen from in here. And we ended up just subsidizing it. And we just couldn't continue doing that. So right now, even the software that's in there, the equipment that's in there is obsolete. So we will be removing those probably within the next 3 to 6 months.
And any plans to put any bike racks in, is the old fashioned bike racks?
We do currently have a project that we're working on. We're going to be adding about 1,500 bike racks throughout the city. Pretty excited about that. We will be installing them along the sidewalk and throughout the city, literally throughout the city.
Commissioner Green again. I asked this last time, don't know if it's possible.
Sorry, this is Chair Jermaine. Let's see, there's a Christopher 14. Is that a member of the public who's wanting to speak, or?
Yes, that is.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, we'll continue with the comments, and then we do have a member of the public who wants to speak. I see a raised hand.
Yes, that's correct. So we'll go ahead and conclude the comments from the commissioners, and Mr. Fortin, you'll be given an opportunity if it, as it appears to be allowed by the chair. Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Greenside, you think you had something you want to conclude with?
Yes, I asked last time, I'll say it again, is there any possibility in the upcoming cycle of grant applications for dedicated bike and bus and or carpool lanes on the city streets at any point in the future, especially during rush hour?
We'd have to take a look at that. Like I mentioned earlier, the application for submitting this cycle, the scope has already been defined, and it's a lot of them are for safe route to school, so it has nothing to do with the actual lanes. It's more like holding out, slowing traffic going to school. So, but that's something we'll keep on our radar.
Chair Jermaine, thank you for that. And at this moment, we'll conclude with the commissioner's comments and open it up to the public speaker.
I can go ahead and speak.
Yes, let's let the recording secretary make that announcement. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything that you had said. Recording secretary will recognize the speaker from the public and begin the 3 minutes.
Just a moment.
Oh, sorry.
I've just sent a request for you to unmute yourself, Mr. Ford. Are you?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Thank
you. My name is Christopher Forden. I'm a Santa Ana resident in the 92701 zip code. I'm also a project director of Santa Ana Active Streets. I was really excited to see this item on the active transportation work update be on tonight's agenda. And I just wanted to voice, at least in my role at SAS, just wanted to voice just the support of the city staff for all their work in applying for active transportation grants. I think one of the contexts that I like to share is in terms of cities throughout, honestly, the region of Southern California. It is a very difficult task to actually even get this much of infrastructure investments actually into a city. I understand, I would have conversation with colleagues even in the San Gabriel Valley, where they would be very happy. They are very happy that they have funds for open street events to do things like ciclovias, but they find it very difficult to get infrastructure projects done. So it's kind of it's always funny to hear, well, we have infrastructure, but it would be really great to also get ciclovia. So it's different kind of problems, but it is still a move in the right direction of changing the culture toward prioritizing bicyclists and pedestrians. So I definitely just wanted to give a good work to at least the city and just their overall commitment toward active transportation. As a resident, I'd like to just speak also just on the issue around pedestrians and bus riders, specifically. Currently, like me and a few other residents are kind of starting to honestly document the quality of bus stops throughout the city. And if you look on Grand, if you look on even on Main Street, you'll see the absence of bus benches. Sometimes you even see the absence of shading. I understand the city is going to be undergoing a study of the busiest bus stops in the city to possibly upgrade them in partnership with OTA. But my concern is, though, that a lot of these bus stops that don't have shading or sometimes don't even have benches themselves, they are in low areas that are actually connecting into neighborhoods where people are actually directly connecting. It's not the busiest hubs, but it's actually connecting residents to their public transit options. So when we're not having shading on hot days like this, it's a really uncomfortable experience for anybody that's a senior, a youth, somebody that's a worker, it's tired from a day. And so I just want to emphasize that while we're looking into investing in bus stops, that we're investing in places that are lacking in those things. So I'd love to see, where there is a lack of bus benches, where there is lack of shading, and see that we can get those kind of investments into those locations. And lastly, I just wanted to also voice my concern with the recent bus benches that have been recently installed with the armrests. About 7 years ago, when the active transportation coordinator with the city was installed, there was an initiative to install bus benches like the ones at Main and First. The benches themselves were culturally relevant to the community. And you might not even notice it, but like those ones have inspired by Pipa el Picado. They were also had no bus armrests. It was very ideal for anybody who wanted to sit down, regardless of body type. And now we have these benches that are with armrests and a smaller space to sit. We see people with their groceries. We see people that put their things on the benches themselves, and it actually allows for a lot more flexibility to use the space. And right now, I feel we're taking a really big step back while we're installing new infrastructure for pedestrians to use the bus stops. We're also taking a step back in the actual design that's really inclusive to the whole community. So I just really want to just emphasize that I'm not a fan of what is being installed currently with the new bus benches, and I hope there can be further considerations, because the work done 7 years ago was thinking of pedestrians in mind and of a broader community in mind, and what's being included now a few years later is not. So I just like to just voice my concern on that issue, and that is all. Thank you.
I believe that concludes item number 7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Moving on to comments and updates from staff and commissioners. Are there comments or updates from staff members?
Yes, Chair, we have one comment. So Christy, can you? Just an update.
Hi, I'm Christine, the enterprise manager who oversees, among other things, solid waste and recycling. I was asked to give a 5-minute brief update on how waste management is doing right now, and then also the transition with Republic Services. So it's going to be very hard to try to keep it to 5 minutes. So what I will say is that we've been working cooperatively with waste management and Republic to plan a transition. Waste management is still, as far as operations, they are still being impacted by COVID. They, as of the end of last week, they did, were able to do all of the routes by end of day Friday. This week they're behind 6 recycling routes, which impacts about 2,900 residential units. What they're doing though is they are getting those finished and picked up usually by Friday night at the very latest Saturday morning. But it's only the recycled routes. We make sure that all the trash and green waste are up and off the street. So we'll ask for some grace for a little while longer just because of the pandemic, but they are seeing drivers come back. Waste management's also been borrowing drivers from other hauling facilities to try to, make everything work better. So that's been a really wonderful effort, but there's been some pitfalls. Now, as far as the transition with Republic goes, a lot of things are happening. They ordered the carts, the bins, the trucks. They're working on a 16-week transition plan of delivering new Republic carts and bins to residents and businesses, and removing the waste management carts and bins. We'll be sending out mailers to everybody in the next week or so, but they will not be all going out in 1 week. They will be all mailed out over a 16-week period, just to let the next group know when their bins or carts will be exchanged. Because the size of the city is so large, we have so much to deliver and replace, you have to do it over this long period of time. So we are letting people know on a weekly basis, and that's just one of the first things. We had an article in the San Andreas Green newsletter, 2 articles about the new transition and new carts coming. This is just the first 2 pieces of massive public education and outreach. We have, so along with those cart and bin, especially let's talk about the residential carts. When those are delivered and then waste management ones are picked up, they will also be delivered with each set a program services guide. which will tell everybody how to take advantage of all the programs that are in the new contract, of which there are many. I can run over a few of those. But anyway, the rollout and the transition of those things will be finished by the end of June. Service will start on July 1. Can I elaborate a little bit more? Do you want me to talk about some of the services in the contract? Oh, I have a minute 49 left. Okay. I just want to talk about my favorite part of the contract then. Clean City initiatives. I think somebody asked earlier if this contract is going to impact, how clean the city is. It's absolutely going to impact the city and how clean it is, because there are over 55,000 hours of cleaning the city in addition to just picking up the trash. It's pretty wonderful. So we have illegal dumping or abandoned item cleanup that will be on call, that will be accessed also via the app, and that will go straight to public services. They're going to have to be picking all those things up and closing things out within a 24-hour period. In addition to that, we have a new program, which are the right-of-way containers, up to 250 of them placed strategically in high traffic areas that will be serviced weekly. They'll be steam cleaned inside and out weekly so that they really do remain clean. In addition to that, there's hardscape cleaning, sidewalk, curb, gutter, power washing, quarter service, and one of the step-ups from our current agreement with Waste Management is the public services will be cleaning out the alleys every single week. They've been doing every other week in this contract. Let's see what else. 25 seconds. 25 seconds. Anybody have any questions? We did well. Got into it. Can I answer anything for anyone?
I just want to add, this is an exciting time with changes, and someone who's gone to council and watched this ball get kicked down the road many times, to see it come to fruition. And Christine, I want to thank you for 7 years in working.
7 years.
Thank you.
We can proceed. Chair.
Yes, Chair Jermaine, are there any further comments from, are there comments from the commissioners at this time?
This is Commissioner Ward, I'll go first. Excuse me. I've already mentioned this to the bill in delivery, but Councilman McCann has asked me to accept the nomination to the Personnel Board, which I believe the council is going to take on Tuesday the 15th. So this will probably be the last commission meeting with PTAC. I've really enjoyed, again, working with all the staff and the presentations. It's a great group. I'll continue to say great things to you about you to my council. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Bennett. It's the second time that you've done this. You work together, but he's going through it from. So I'm at the cross. I've enjoyed what you do. Appreciate that. I'll repeat this. This is a very exciting time. Maybe those that have said this commission have not appreciated that all get going in the city, and it's being accomplished. The time we sat around constantly sat here, projects got talked about, but nothing ever happened. So, no, thank you. You're leading a great department. We're getting things done again. So thank you. It's the team. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Greenside. Just want to thank everybody in the staff tonight for all their time and energy. As was already stated, your great work is not going unnoticed at all. Thank you.
Thank you also for all the work that you do for the city. Hopefully one day there will be less cars and we don't have to worry about parking permits. Because Zed and his team are going to be doing the work to make this place more bikeable and walkable. So that's a dream for the future. And I'll just close with that.
Chair.
Thank you. Yes, this is Chair Jermaine. I'd like to thank Commissioner Vice Chair Gary Wood for being a support and for me during this duration. I've been here since we've been involved here together, and looking forward to seeing you in the future, and wish you the best in your new ventures. Yeah, so I really appreciate that, and definitely someone I can lean on for wisdom as well. So I know I have a few that hopefully I can lean on as mentors, and you're definitely one. So with that, those are my comments for. Though my comments for city staff and the presentation that was presented to us today, and appreciate the hard work and everything that you guys have put together to inform us and educate us and allow us to explore by asking questions. So I wanted to thank you for that. Also, wanted to thank the commission for supporting the nominees for the ad hoc. So really appreciate that as we see ventures for our commission to make a difference and be aidful with our residents and staff here with the city. So thank you very much. Wanted to end with that.
Adjourned. Are you adjourning? Or are you moving on to something else?
I'm sorry. Yes. If we can get a vote on adjourning this meeting, I'm open to it. Or someone to move and second. Is that necessary at this moment?
No, just you need to adjourn.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. Moving on to the meeting adjournment. The next regular ETAC meeting is scheduled at 4 p.m. on March 8th, 2022. The meeting will be in person meeting. The ETAC meeting of February 8th, 2022 is adjourned at
6:10.
6:10. Thank you.
Okay.
Lori, did I foul the time earlier? Well, I can't hear you now. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. 2 hours difference, so I might have, okay.